Well, I know exercise is supposed to be good for me, but I just don't like it.
I think it gives you a lot more energy.
Exercise. Keeps me in shape. Or good for the girls.
It messes up my hair. I look awful.
55 years old, I figured I had to do something to kind of preserve the quality of my advancing years.
I think you just have to try to really appreciate it.
I really believe in exercise, but as I'm getting older, I'm getting lazier.
It's too much like work.
You sleep real well.
I tried and I got so tired I was sleeping all the time.
I like to eat so I can eat a little bit more to keep my weight down.
Yeah, I tried exercising to lose weight. It just made me hungry.
My heart's stronger than most 25-year-olds.
You run around like that and you're liable to get a heart attack.
It's fun.
Obviously, people have conflicting feelings about exercise. Some think it's healthy and even fun to sweat. But most of us have grown up looking for ways to sweat less, to make life easier. Our habits as a nation have changed dramatically in that direction over the last 150 years. We used to do nearly all our work by hand. Once human muscles provided a third of the energy to run the nation. Now, people power contributes less than half of 1%. Today, most of our jobs are done by machines. Exercise is simply not part of our daily routine, where once it was inescapable. Almost everything we do today burns fewer calories than the same task 150 years ago. There's no denying that mechanization and electronics have led to marvelous improvements in the quality of our lives. In fact, few of us would actually choose to return to the laborious good old days. But we are not only beneficiaries of the technological revolution, we're also its victims. Our extremely sedentary habits leave us more vulnerable to the so-called lifestyle diseases. But we do have a measure of control. We have a choice. We can choose a sedentary lifestyle which increases the risk of high blood pressure, heart disease, stroke, and bone, joint, and muscle ailments, as well as stress-related problems like depression, anxiety, insomnia, and headache. On the other hand, we can choose an active lifestyle which helps protect against these diseases. But to do this, most of us have to make a deliberate effort to slowly schedule exercise back into our lives.
We find that taking our walk in the evening is the easiest for us because during the day I work and in the morning we don't really have that much time. Now it's real easy to get lazy and not go out if you don't you have a regular schedule.
I was wasting a lot of time every day just sitting in a car stuck in traffic. And I figured that was time that I could be putting into exercise, so I bought a bike and we started riding to work.
I'm a student. I spend a lot of time studying, and I study better in the day, so swimming is one of the best exercises I can do because it fits in with the evening schedule.
If you have to fit your exercise program into a half hour, or even an hour a day, then you need to make it count. That means it has to be cardiovascular, or aerobic. Cardiovascular simply means that you exercise your heart, cardio, and develop your circulatory system, vascular. Aerobic means literally with oxygen, and refers to the body's ability to use oxygen to create energy. In order to be cardiovascular or aerobic, your exercise should involve the dynamic use of the large muscle groups. It should be steady, rhythmic, and continuous, rather than an activity which goes in fits and starts. This is not cardiovascular exercise. This is. Again, this is not. While this is a steady, rhythmic, aerobic activity.
The greatest benefit is achieved from these types of activities if one exercises at a heart rate somewhere between about 70 to 85% of their maximal heart rate. one can estimate what their maximal heart rate would be by using the formula 220 minus your age in years. For example, one could look at this chart and see that at age 20, maximal heart rate is about 200 beats per minute. An individual would want to exercise then at around 140 to 170 beats per minute. While at age 40, an individual will have a maximum heart rate closer to 180 beats a minute and want to exercise at a somewhat lower heart rate, somewhere between 126 and 158 beats a minute for 20 minutes or longer. Take a minute to find your target heart rate on this chart. Of course, the next question is, how do you monitor your pulse rate while exercising? First, there's a simple test you can take to prevent from overdoing it, the talk test. If you can carry on a conversation like this, you're doing all right. Of course, you have a built-in computer to monitor your exercise intensity, your heart or pulse rate. After you've been exercising for at least several minutes at a steady rate, stop and begin to monitor your pulse rate immediately at the wrist. Count your pulse for 10 seconds and multiply it by 6 to get a rate for beats per minute.
There are cautions to be observed before starting an exercise program. The reason is that you may already have blockage in your coronary arteries or some other cardiac problem without actually having symptoms. There are two views regarding how to determine whether you are at risk. On the one hand, there are experts who believe very strongly that if you are over the age of 35, you must have a complete medical examination, including an exercise electrocardiogram. Another group of experts believes that the exercise EKG is not necessary for most people to begin exercising. They feel that, in fact, it gives inaccurate results in a significant number of cases and is not readily available to most people. The moderate view suggests that if you're overweight, have high blood pressure, high blood fats or cholesterol, a family history of heart disease, diabetes, and especially if you smoke, you should have a complete medical examination and an exercise EKG before embarking on an exercise program. If you don't have any of these problems, then start, but start slowly. Take your time. It took years for you to get out of shape, and you can't get back into shape in just 2 or 3 weeks. Start by walking a few blocks, swimming 1 or 2 laps, cycling to the store and back. If the effort causes continued shortness of breath, dizziness, nausea, heart palpitations, or pains in the chest, arm, shoulder, neck, or jaw, then stop and see a physician. Now, on the other hand, don't let all these cautions give you an excuse to put off getting started. After all, it's a lot riskier to remain sedentary than to begin a program of rational exercise.
When many people begin to exercise, they get excited and tend to overdo it. For example, they'll buy a bicycle and on the first Saturday try to ride 20 miles. And then for the next 3 days, they're sore and they end up hanging the bicycle up in the garage, returning to the living room and watching other people exercise on television. That's obviously no way to begin an exercise program. The right way is to begin with a slow, gradual program. For instance, the beginning program might look something like this: 5 minutes of warm-up, 10 minutes at the conditioning pace or at your target heart rate, and 5 minutes of cool down, 3 or 4 times a week. For several weeks, many people will not feel comfortable exercising at their target heart rates for 10 minutes. The thing to do in that case is alternate between a brisk pace and a slower pace until you can sustain your target heart rate for at least 10 minutes. At this point, you're ready to increase the cardiovascular component of your workout with increments of about 1 minute or so per week until you can exercise vigorously and steadily for 20 minutes or longer.
Also in today's race, we have Sheila Young-Ochiwicz, 3-time world sprint champion and Olympic gold medalist. Let's give him a big send-off. 4, 3, 2, 1.
I grew up in a competitive family, and I really enjoyed bike racing. But you don't necessarily have to compete to reap the benefits of the exercise. There are some principles that have been developed over the years for athletic training that apply to exercise for fitness, whether or not you're interested in competition. For instance, every time you exercise, you should follow the same basic routine that includes stretching, warm-up, exercise, cool down, and stretching. By stretching, you're helping your body make the transition from inactivity to strenuous exercise and back again without injuring your muscles and joints. If you stretch, you can increase your body's flexibility and also avoid some of the aches and pains that many people think are inevitable. Each sport has its own routine for stretching. Here's some of the exercises I use for cycling. There's a lot of tension on your upper arms and shoulders, so you can take your elbow and stretch till you start feeling some tension here, but not pain. And hold the stretch for about 10 to 20 seconds. Also, there's a lot of tension on your neck muscles, so you can rotate your neck in each direction very slowly. In cycling, as in many sports, we use the large muscle groups in our legs. And to do those exercises, I find myself a tree or a fence, and I lean against it for balance. And for the quadriceps, I pull my foot, my hand, and pull it forward until you start feeling a little bit of tension here. And then for the calf muscles, you can lean against the tree, keeping your heel on the ground, lean my hips forward until you start feeling the tension, a little pull in the back. For the lower back and hamstring muscles, which are back here, just dangle a little bit forward, not always trying to touch your toes, but until you can start feeling a little pull. Some days you may be able to get a little lower than others. I think stretching is really important in exercising, but there's definitely a right and a wrong way of doing it. What we learned in high school, the bouncing method, is really dangerous because you can have microscopic tears in your muscles and tendons. The correct way is a relaxed stretch, short of your maximum extension. A static, easy stretch for the first 10 to 20 seconds with only slight tension. Then when you're really relaxed, you slowly move into it a little further, again stopping short of pain. For me, the great thing about stretching is that it's not competitive. It's sort of a time that you can reflect on the sport and really just sort of relax.
If you systematically and consistently apply the process of stretching, warm-up, aerobic exercise, cool down, and once again, stretching, you will make surprising progress. The body has an incredible capacity for adaptation, even if you've been sedentary for years.
I was well over 50, almost 55, before I ever started skiing, and I really wasn't too much of an outdoor person either. It took me 3 years to find out there was a way to stop besides falling down. I was a little slow, but you gradually get so that you build up. If we get in shape and stick with it, why, you can cover quite a few miles.
About 2.5 years ago, I had a aortic valve replaced in my heart, and from the time that I first had the surgery, I began to do exercises, even in the hospital. And I had to, of course, begin very slowly. I started out where I could get from the bed to the end of the bed and then to the bathroom. And I finally got to the point where I could walk to the store and back, and just gradually progressed until I began jogging. And at the present time, I'm running about between 35 minutes, at least 5 days a week.
After you've made a certain amount of progress, you'll find the reason you keep going is that you begin to discover the rewards.
I've stayed with walking for a couple of years because I've seen results. I'm able to maintain my weight, and I feel better now than I felt 5 years ago.
It releases a whole new energy, you know. We feel very rejuvenated.
Physical exercise makes a person look great, feel really good about themselves. Your clothes look good on you. You can wear nice clothes.
Makes you feel good, makes you feel graceful on your feet.
Speed and agility, hand reaction, hand and eye coordination.
It doesn't seem quite so much like working out. Sometimes it can be just plain fun.
I think that when you have a job that has a lot of stress, running really helps to cope with that stress.
It just helps to go out and get it out of your system instead of going home and kicking the dog.
I start to get a little nutty and my temper flares. The only thing that gets me straight again is to go out and take a run and start to feel like things are right in the universe.
I feel like when I get to the top of a high mountain, I can go down and battle in the valley again.
I have a lot of energy. I do a lot of things every day. I work, I'm a mother. I just seem to pack a lot into a day.
I think makes me perform better the rest of the day.
I've seen so many of my friends, once they retired, line up in Eternal Hill Cemetery in 6 months, and I said, well, this is not going to happen to me.
I weighed about 200 pounds about 2 years ago, and I've lost nearly 35 pounds since I started running.
As you get older, your metabolism slows down, and I start to gain weight. So mainly right now, I exercise to keep my weight in control.
I just needed to start doing something about my weight. It's time to do something. I've got to get down here. It's not going to happen by itself. God, I've lost 12 pounds, and well, I guess I'm getting into shape.
One of the greatest payoffs of exercise is weight control. This is John Keith, and this is Jackie Lindgreen. For the last 4 months, they have been on a weight loss program. However, unlike many of us, they are not on a temporary diet. They're attempting to slowly and permanently change their habits. They're taking in about 250 calories less every day by eating fewer high-fat foods. And they're burning 250 calories more every day by exercising like this 4 or 5 times a week. 4 months ago, on January 16th, after years of fighting the battle of the bulge, John weighed in at 206 pounds. On February 13th, after 1 month on his program, he weighed 190. On March 13th, he weighed 186. On April 17th, 183. Today, May 10th, he weighs 180, 26 pounds less, and he still plans to lose another 10 or 15 pounds. In the same period, Jackie went from 178 to 170 to 158 to 150, a total loss of 28 pounds. This approach is not a crash diet. It is a slow, steady lifestyle change that takes a while to develop. However, in the beginning, the payoffs of this kind of exercise program may not be too obvious. Almost all of us have tried exercise at one time or another, but fairly soon we hit a snag or a sticking point.
What's it like out?
It's starting to snow.
Let's forget it.
The weather turns bad, the kids go back to school, daylight savings time is off, we get a cold, or go on a business trip, and before we know it, we've missed 2 weeks. By the time that turns to 3, we say, oh well, I'll get started again after Christmas. On the other hand, there are people who do stick with it. Somehow they manage to get going, even on cold winter mornings.
Sometimes, it's so cold outside and it's so warm. Nice to stay in bed. I get up and go out. And at the time I've gone a mile, I don't know, your pulse starts increasing, I guess. You just feel better.
There are a lot of different reasons why people stay with their exercise program over the years.
One of the things that I found that kept me in the program is that I
keep achieving little goals.
These people are participants in an employee fitness program sponsored by the General Dynamics Corporation in San Diego.
At the end of that 7 weeks, I found a tremendous change, by the fact that they demonstrated.
They're talking about the things that have helped them stay with exercise.
I figured if 7 weeks was good, certainly 1 year and 2 and 3 were going to be an awful lot better.
I found I stuck with it because of the support I got from everybody. I wouldn't do it if I were home by myself. I will do it as part of a group.
Commitment plays a big part in it. For example, my first 10K, you guys asked, Janie, are you going to run it? And the commitment of saying, yes, I am, made me go out and run it, even though I was scared stiff.
I find it really satisfying, too, that my clothes were fitting better, but what really makes the difference to me is when I get out of the shower and I look in the mirror and I notice that certain bulges aren't there anymore.
Well, since I joined the program, I've gotten more into running as a sport than just as a coming out after work. I went out and I bought a watch and I subscribed to Runner's World. And so it's now becoming something I do more than just something I have to do.
Setting of milestones is particularly important to me because
for many people, keeping track of their progress is helpful in making exercise a lifelong habit.
Goal. In this case, it was the 8-minute mile.
Well, another thing that helps me keep going is to see how many miles I've gone and to keep a log. And here at the fitness center, we have a 250-mile club, and I can see how far I've run. And when I get to 250 miles, I get a T-shirt.
I don't enjoy jogging. I love to walk, and when I walk, I can do it at my own speed. If I had to jog, I probably would have dropped out. So I think you have to find something that you enjoy doing, and then you'll stick with it.
To enjoy an exercise does more for you than if you do it because you think you have to. See, I'll be 86 here in a few days, and I'm still climbing mountains.
Hulda Crooks is the person who got past her sticking point. She succeeded in building exercise into her life, although she did not really start until she was well into her 50s. At age 66, she climbed Mount Whitney for the first time, and she's climbed it every year since.
I grew up on the farm in western Canada and Saskatchewan, but I never had a regular exercise program.
Hulda Crooks wasn't healthy all her life. As a young woman, she was overweight and often felt run down. At 17, she left home to get an education.
So I was on my own, and in working my way through to a college education, I broke my health. And I got pneumonia, and I was always tired. I didn't seem to be able to get over it. I thought, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to die? And I thought, oh, well, if I die, I won't be tired anymore.
Things started to improve when Hulda became interested in the outdoors. She started taking walks with friends, hiking up hills, and then climbing small mountains. By 1962, she worked up to climbing Mount Whitney for the first time. 4 years later, at the age of 70, she became interested in jogging.
So I began running in my backyard, from the corner of the lot to the gate. By the time I was going back and forth 6 times without resting, I thought I was really going places. And then I took to the road. And it took me probably at least 6 months before I was jogging half a mile. And next time I climbed Whitney, I was surprised at how much easier it was than it had been the year before. With older people, you find that they let down. I tell them that if they have trouble feeling that it's important to have a regular exercise program, to go down to the convalescent home, walk up and down those halls, look into those rooms, and then go home and get busy and do something. The body will respond to what you ask it to do, to the limit of its physiological ability. If you don't ask it to do anything at all, it'll just sit. And if you have a hobby like this that gives you exercise, it does a lot to keep you younger. I'm sure that my regular exercise program has greatly retarded the aging process. I'm so afraid we're not going to get here before it rained, and we made it, and we did. And after all, if life is worth living, why not live it the best way we know how? And this